We are about to get started.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for your patience. My name is Shannon. I'm an advisor to a bunch of Web3 and AI startups, and I am really excited to dive into our topic, infrastructure's AI moment, powering the race to power autonomous agents. So we are at a strange moment. AI is eating software, crypto is being reframed almost daily, and somehow these two things keep colliding. And the most interesting thing about this collision, I think, isn't that it's just about payments being what's going to enable the breakout use case for crypto and AI. I think it's infrastructure. And we have the best person, I think, in the building to talk to us about infrastructure and decentralized infrastructure. Molly Mackinlay has been in the Web3 space since 2018. And before that, she worked at Google on Chrome and mobile search. She's been an OSS contributor to IPFS since 2016, where she was the project lead. She led the engineering and research effort to launch the Filecoin mainnet in 2020. She launched the Protocol Labs Venture Studio. And she's currently CEO of PhilOz and leading the development of Filecoin onchain cloud. So she's been building the foundational pieces of digital infrastructure for over a decade. And now, Molly, you are watching the AI agent wave arrive at those foundations. So let's get into it. There are roughly 10 million AI agents active today. Analysts expect that to hit hundreds of millions within 3 years. These agents aren't browsing the web and clicking buttons. They're transacting, allocating compute, storing state, calling APIs autonomously, continuously. That's a fundamentally different class of infrastructure consumer than a human developer. So why are agents specifically the forcing function for DePIN and Web3 to find its moment today? What do autonomous systems actually need that's different from what human developers need? And where does traditional cloud, AWS, start to crack under that?
Awesome. So excited to be here. So excited to be chatting about this topic. I'm sure we're all electrified by the momentum that AI is having in our lives. I've been talking to a number of developers I've worked with that have gone from a year ago, working with Claude Code, maybe getting 10% lift, to now, they don't even write code anymore. They're just reviewing PRs as fast as they can from a whole team of AI agents that are making new changes to Solidity smart contracts. We've got some of our first vulnerabilities being committed by Claude Code into Solidity smart contracts as well. So I think actually 100 million in 3 years is an underestimate. I would expect that we're at 100 million before the end of this year, and probably even 10 million might be an underestimate of the number of agents that are already there, but just aren't interconnected and interoperating in the live internet or accessible to some of these estimates. I think it's a huge factor for all of humanity. We are riding a wave of creating a huge new workforce and portion of the economy, and making sure that we build the tools and infrastructure for that giant economic swath to use and operate on effectively is going to be a very big market. It already is. We already see neoclouds building for AI training and inference workflows. But as we start to think about agents themselves as autonomous actors, they have a set of priorities and a set of needs and requirements that don't mesh well with the traditional cloud or the legacy cloud, and work really well with some of the areas that have been both selling points but sometimes hindrances for Web3 adoption. So that's why it's a really exciting moment for all of us who have been building infrastructure and tools in this space. Some of the things, maybe as you're thinking from the perspective of an AI agent, where Web 2 might get in your way. One of those is just these clouds were designed from the ground up for humans. They're around human identity. There's some individual's bank account on the back end. They're connected to someone's email address. And in a world in where we start to have larger and larger communities of agents interoperating and perpetuating themselves and paying for their own resources, clouds that are designed around a single human identity, and that humans may be liable for everything that agent is doing on the internet, starts to become a significant concern for those agents, both in their own preservation, but also having the ability to operate in online contexts autonomously. You don't want to be dependent on an AWS API that might go down. Literally, the day that we launched the Filecoin on-chain cloud was a AWS and Cloudflare outage. Almost everyone's demos were down, except for the folks that were building on a full, resilient, open cloud that didn't rely on these central points of failure. If you're an AI agent and your literal memory and ability to act in the world depends upon those single points of failure, you're pretty motivated to make sure that you have multiple different fallbacks and ways to operate resiliently. And I think that's a huge selling point for the clouds and the infrastructure tools that we've been building in Web3 is that there's multiple layers of fallbacks. There's very, very, very high uptime because you have all of these different providers that are interoperating to come together to offer that service. Another aspect, I think itself, has been a hindrance in Web3 for human adoption, but is actually going to be a huge selling point for AI agents, which is the fact that everything's kind of API, CLI first. One of the friction points for Web3 has been the ease of adoption for an end user. They don't want to deal with their wallet interfaces. They don't want to have to call these different APIs. They don't want to click accept 17 times to bridge funds from network A to network C. But those are, if they're just programmatic API calls, that's not so much a hurdle for an AI agent that is running on a super fast cycle time and is embedded in an API native context. And so a number of the open APIs, the documentation, the open verifiability, where an agent can see what's on the other side of the service that they're purchasing and verify it in real time. That's actually a pretty big selling point for Web3 native services and infrastructure tools that can meet agents without having to call up some sales provider, create a voice, create a phone number, create a fake human identity, create a credit card in order to purchase a service that really should just be an API call away. And so those are some of the building blocks that I think make this an exciting moment for Web3 to convert in the AI agent market. Obviously, also where AI agents start harnessing, digital payments, that's also an opportunity for our infra services that are directly tied to a wallet address and a cryptocurrency payment. Those are then accessible to AI agents in a way that, purchasing an AWS bucket, you can't do that with USDC without some sort of human identity behind it. And so I think that's going to be an exciting movement.
Cool. So agents are giving Web3 a second wind, and DePIN specifically, and you've been building in the decentralized infrastructure space now for 10 years. What can we learn from the past? Decentralized storage, compute, hosting, that we can keep in mind as we try and capitalize on the opportunity today?
Yeah, I think there's a few lessons that we can look at from the maybe some of the missteps or some of the hurdles that the DePIN ecosystem has overcome over the years. A critical first one is focusing on supply versus demand. I think many DePIN networks, in building up this two-sided marketplace of service providers and service clients, focused first on deploying resources to build up larger pools of service providers. Filecoin did this as well. And that has a hurdle because you're trying to emulate a client's need. You're building up a large pool of available resources. You look at all of the GPU, compute clouds right now. You have these large communities of participants, and you're subsidizing their presence on your network without them doing useful revenue-generating work on behalf of your ecosystem. And I think where we can focus in this moment is really closely mapping the inbound revenue to the work that's being done within the infrastructure network. So I'm really bullish on orienting the crypto economics of networks and making sure we're focusing on inbound client needs that are being paid for by a real user or client. Some folks have done this via focusing on a single large proof of concept or a single client, making sure they deliver against that, LOI or MOU to a real paying customer, and then they target the infrastructure build out to meet that client's needs, and then they scale horizontally from there. The other model is just you start with a very clear value flow where 99% of the value a service provider in your ecosystem gets is the revenue that's flowing from a customer to that service provider, so that there's constant alignment to meeting the needs of that provider within the ecosystem. So I think that's a key area where we've seen DePIN networks kind of stray in building out more supply than they actually had demand to fill. And also from the crypto economic side, making sure there's a really clear model of how clients are directing rewards and resources to those service providers based on quality of service and performance, not just based on is there a checkbox somewhere in a proof that might or might not mean that I got my needs met as a client. So I think that's one kind of critical journey. I also think from a DePIN perspective, making sure that we build things that are kind of fully end-to-end being used. So looking at the whole user journey, not just the early hackathon POC. I think this will be those applications that are actually going end-to-end, that are scaling, that are becoming kind of like core building blocks that are getting used. I've started to see a little bit less focus on building out 10,000 builder communities and more focus on what are these lighthouse applications that are scaling quickly, that are gaining real usage, that are driving real revenue. I think we'll see more of a contraction and a focus even in the AI infrastructure age into the real applications, products, and use cases that are converting and actually scaling their adoption, not just the number of examples that you can list in a promo website. And so I think that's an exciting opportunity as well for teams that really want to build real products versus, mining different rewards and bounties at hackathons. I also think it's a really cool moment where we're using AI agents to build out those tools for themselves, and that can create a flywheel of new product ideas that are getting hacked on. It's crazy to me that we see so few of those really interesting new ideas coming out of the large AI labs. I think they're too busy doing their model training. They're not doing the product experimentation that is available in the wider ecosystem. Things like, OpenClaw, Moltbook, those aren't, coming from the large AI labs. That means there's a great opportunity for this ecosystem as well to build some of those new products as they can grow.
Yeah, I want to tap into that because I want to debate you on this point, actually. I think that the AI labs have been paying attention to blockchain. Just yesterday, OpenAI, which actually acquired OpenClaw after Anthropic sent the founder a cease and desist letter or something, so major fail for Anthropic. But OpenAI and Paradigm Research, which folks in this community will know, published a joint research paper with Tempo, which is a purpose-built layer 1 blockchain for stablecoins, on EVM Bench, and it's a benchmark for how well agents can detect and patch high-severity smart contract vulnerabilities. Anthropic also published a paper in December just on how to benchmark for smart contract vulnerabilities. The use cases here are around finance. So I think we're seeing AI labs recognize the value prop around stablecoins. But how does the infrastructure space in Web3 kind of take that, take the playbook of stablecoins to actually start to get in the door of these AI research labs and of these AI startups? Because we're not going to win if we just keep talking to ourselves in Web3. We have to be going out to the broader market. So how do we do that?
I think a couple ways. One, there's going out to the broader market, as in going out to the agent communities themselves. Solana was actually doing a really interesting thing. All of their websites now, you append .md, and it becomes an agent-readable skills file for how you use that particular thing. good insights. If you make your documentation and your tools the most accessible, most well-documented, most open resource, then anyone who's using agents or the agents themselves that are deciding what tools to use to build out their next workflow are going to default to the ones that solve their needs the best. And so I think there's a key kind of DevX opportunity there that also resonates with where I think this ecosystem has historically catered toward developers and open documentation. So I think that's an area to lean into. I also think there's a flag around like the global access side of things. There's just so much demand. Like hardware costs are rising massively right now. So any group that has existing hardware capacity, helping open that up to ecosystems that literally can't buy more of the hardware they're looking for, I think that's a good opportunity for people to monetize and help groups scale that are getting priced out of Amazon or Google or traditional cloud operations.
Cool. One last spicy question. Brian Flynn yesterday wrote, if your service can't be discovered by a machine, it doesn't exist to agents. Discovery has to be programmatic. A human still decides which tools an agent is allowed to use, but once the agent is running, purchasing decisions are pure optimization. So for on-chain services specifically, what does that discovery layer actually look like?
Yeah, I mean, the 8004 community is doing a discovery layer around all of the different agents that exist. I think from an infrastructure perspective, that's having open APIs and good documentation about the problems that you're solving, making sure that you have good SEO equivalents so that those are top of mind and describe well the problems that they're solving so that when you ask ChatGPT, what API should I use for decentralized storage? You get the Filecoin on-chain cloud instead of getting, hey, you should just stick it all on AWS. That'll be fine. That's not going to break. And so I think that level of access is a key thing to focus on. I would love to see even more tools where we're kind of enabling this kind of agent-to-agent prioritization and an evaluation of tools. Benchmarks are a great component in there as well, as we can start seeing different tools ranking on benchmarks in terms of supporting specific use cases. And so, like, 3 different opportunities there. Make sure that your agents themselves can access this information. Make sure that your documentation is truly accessible. Make sure that you actually benchmarked end-to-end the use cases you're trying to solve.
And very quickly, what should folks know about Filecoin on-chain cloud and what's coming?
It's really exciting. We just have deployed all of the smart contracts on mainnet. It went to testnet back in November of 2025. And so folks that are excited to build fully autonomous on-chain agents or are thinking about the use cases for their Web3 applications to be storing their data in places where agents can then interoperate with those data sets effectively without centralized intermediaries. Filecoin on-chain cloud runs entirely in smart contracts, entirely with wallets and stablecoins. You can pay for storage and retrieval in real time on a global network of storage providers in the Filecoin ecosystem. We have a lot of really nice SDKs. We have an MCP server. It's built for this exact community of builders. And so we'd love to see people start integrating it into their workflows. And if you are running cool things where your agents are programming against it, we have a whole set of RFSs, requests for startups, built by agents, and we're doing a hackathon right now as part of PL Genesis, where you can build some of those cool ideas or whatever your heart desires, and we'd love to see what you output. So tell me what you're doing.
Cool. We are over time. I think we'll be around for questions if people want to chat with us after. Thanks very much.
Thank you, everyone.